Alright, welcome back. So I've got this simple thing written out. We've got an array of 10 numbers, 10 integers called nums, an array of 10 squares right here called squares, and basically we've got a little while loop set up where I equals 0 right here, and we're adding 1 to it each time. So we'll say while I is less than 10, and we'll go ahead and assign I to nums sub I. And then we'll increment I. So basically what this loop is doing is it starts at 0, and then it says the first value in nums is going to get assigned to 0. And then add 1 to it, check if it's less than 10, and so on. And so basically 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 are going to get stored in the 10 positions of nums. Now we can do this with a for loop, much the same way. So we'd do for, and then there's 3 statements in this right here. And they're this statement right here, initial condition, this statement right here, what to check every time, our Boolean expression, and then this one right here, what to do each time. And so basically we want to start by saying I equals 0, and then we want I less than 10, and I plus plus. And so what we have right here in this for loop is, before we enter the body right here of the loop, we're setting I equals 0. Each time we hit the end of the loop, and actually before we hop into it in the first spot, we check that I is less than 10 before entering it. And every time we hit the end, this happens. I gets incremented. So if we do in here, nums sub I equals I, these two loops are now the exact same thing. Set the initial condition, I equals 0, before we go into the loop. The Boolean expression that gets checked every time is this middle statement right here. And then this gets applied every time we hit the end of the loop. So it'll go in, I equals 0. Is I less than 10? Yes. Go into the loop. Set that 0 equals 0. Come to the end, add 1 to it. And then it checks again. Is 1 less than 10? Yes it is. Set the first one equal to 1. And then increment it again. Set num sub 2 equal to 2. Num sub 3 equal to 3, and so on. Until I equals 10. 10 is not less than 10. And so we won't set num sub 10 to anything, which is actually good because we're zero-based counting. And so num sub 9 is actually the last number in there. Now we can do a similar loop for I equals 0, set the initial condition. We want 10 more iterations because we've got 10 numbers in squares. I less than 10. And I plus plus. We'll increment I each time that we finish the loop. And then in the loop body, we'll go ahead and say sqrs sub I equals num sub I times num sub I. And so now every time we hit a number in 0 through 9 in this loop, the 10 values, integers in squares, are going to be assigned the square of the first 10 numbers which we had stored in nums. And it's kind of a roundabout way of storing square numbers, but it's going to show us how loops work. So now if we want to go through and print each value here, we're going to have to loop through again, so we can kind of just do the same exact thing. For I equals 0, I less than 10, I plus plus, and print a value followed by a space, and then square sub I. So the first time we go through the loop, it'll print out the first one. Second time we go through the loop, it'll print out the second one, and so on. And then eventually we will exit that loop, and I'll go ahead and just printf a new line character so that we finish on a new line. And let's go ahead and compile and run it. Why not? All right, so there's 0, 1, 4, 9, blah, 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 up to 81, which is 9 times 9. Let's look at our program again. So basically these three loops right here are doing the same thing. For I equals 0, I whatever, blah, 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 blah. So we could just combine them. So now when we enter the loop, oh, look at that. I was assigning nums over twice because this loop is still there. So now, I equals 0, it'll get assigned here. The square of it will get assigned here. And then that'll get printed out. And since we're doing it all in one loop, let's go ahead and kill that. And we'll say simply right here, I times I. And we'll get rid of this guy. And now we've got a nifty little program. In fact, if we wanted to, we could just say I times I right there. And boom, it's the same exact thing. So that's the basic for loop. Can do crazier stuff with it, but basically it works really well with arrays here. You can easily iterate through however many values you have and assign something to that index of the array. Yeah, that looks good.